I think over the last couple of decades, certainly the last 10 to 15 years, the idea that we are just passive food consumers has been challenged, and the era of food citizenship has emerged.
What moves people? What activates people? What gives people will? What helps people tap into their true knowing of what they can do is experience with food, with each other.
Over the years, my work as an artist was in this way working with a mantra called first know food, i.e. to know food, to experience food, to apprehend food, to discover food, and that from food all things come and through food all things return.
How can we think differently about food? And how can food help us to think differently? I'm quoting these questions from the literature for this beautiful project that's at the heart of this discussion, A Taste of Change. When I met these three wonderful women pondering on these questions, I was struck by how powerful this could be. When it comes to our food systems, we've exhausted the old model. These ladies not only recognise that, but hold the wisdom for creating something new. Daphne Lambert, Miche Fabre Lewin and Flora Gathorne-Hardy are the women behind A Taste of Change, and it's a 3-year project that's bringing a shift in the energy. A new way of thinking, or perhaps better said, a new way of being around food. Creating experiences and research that go beyond focusing solely on knowledge to learning with food and connecting together through food to spark fresh, creative and interconnected approaches to our food systems. In the description, you'll find a link to a 3-minute summary video that's a fantastic way for you to share this project further and to recap on how it's all coming together. But for now, enjoy the conversation. Hello ladies, thank you so much for joining me. It's really delightful to see you all and to hear more about this project that I'm really delighted you've invited me along to kind of understand as it's being woven together. Could you share with us, please, what this kind of vision is that you've got for A Taste of Change?
Thank you, Helen. So Taste of Change is a 3-year project. It brings together the three of us, Daphne Lambert, Miche Fabre Lewin and myself, Flora Gathorne-Hardy. And it's essentially a research project which brings together practice, experiences and the sharing of knowledge and resources. And how we have designed it is that over 3 years there will be each year a residency where the three of us come together to deeply explore the connective power of food and how food really sits at the heart of life and sits at the heart of solving so many of the complex problems of our times, particularly issues around health, around land care and around social justice, how we can build social cohesion. So each year there'll be a residency where the three of us come together to deepen into these methodologies that bring food back in to the heart of our connecting together, learning together, and building new cultures of care together. At the end of each residency, we will be convening a very special gathering around a table, and around that table will be people from all parts of the food and farming sector. So it will embrace people growing food, policymakers, researchers, chefs, artists, people in the healthcare practices, and we will bring ourselves together, activists, people campaigning hard for a different food system, a food system that puts the well-being of people and the planet at the heart of how it works. So at the end of each residency, there will be a very special gathering around the table where we will all be able to taste change together, share practices, learn from each other, learn from being with food. And then the third element is that all of the learning, all of the insights, all of the images, all of the harvest of those residencies and the table gathering will be then documented and shared to nourish the food and farming systems change movement over the year. So there'll be podcasts, there'll be imagery, there'll be narratives, there'll be suggestions on how to host food and share food as a transformative medium. And that will be happening over the 3 years. So throughout the 3-year arc, we will be nourishing ourselves, nourishing each other, and nourishing the wider food and farming movement. So it's essentially a kind of practice-based research project that honours all the work being done already towards food, the transformative power of food, and how it can address so many of our challenging issues of our times.
It's so lovely. It's bringing together much of what we talked to yourselves, Flora and Miche, last year about. And anybody that listened to that podcast or may wish to go and have a listen now, you can see this threading through this expansion and the themes where food as systems change, food, and as you say, nourishing the food system, as though your actions and the work that you're putting together is the same as the role of that food, nourishing us and our bodies, but actually nourishing the system itself. I love that you kind of paralleled those words within the way that you described it. And I'm excited for this. I feel a real kind of energy for it. I feel that it's the perfect time. I know that people have they struggle in their spaces to find the energy behind what they're doing, even though we deeply feel it inside ourselves. To share that with the world and our communities can feel a little lonely at times. But what you're doing here to bring people together is absolutely amazing, because you're right, there's so much happening. And I love that element of it. And I think in the literature that you have for this, you use the word cascading. And that really kind of sits with me, as this idea that it's not something where you're dipping in and then everybody goes back and it's all normal, but that kind of cascading, like we see the benefits in an ecosystem as it establishes and evolves. And again, I see that parallel here with the way that you're describing it. So really, really beautiful. So excited to have the opportunity to learn more. If I could now ask you to share a little about each of yourselves so that we can understand the people and the voices behind this taste of change. I'm going to invite you to maybe share with the audience a little of what has brought you from your own journeys to want to bring the development of this project together, each of you in turn.
Thanks, Helen. I think I'm going to invite Daphne in, because I think this notion of cascading practices is at the heart of Daphne's work. And I think this is for you to dovetail in from what Flora has just been sharing feels so right.
Thank you. So, hello, I'm Daphne, and I have spent all my adult years as a chef and nutritionist, immersed in food projects, be it in a restaurant, a garden, supporting those in food poverty, or teaching on a wide range of workshops to people of all ages. I created the charity Greencuisine Trust in 2010 to improve the knowledge and understanding of environmental issues and the interrelationship between food, cooking, culture, biodiversity, agriculture, and the environment. Through this work, Greencuisine Trust promotes farming systems that work in harmony with nature, based on practices that protect and improve the soil, and the understanding that healthy soil is fundamental to our well-being. Soil affects the quality of the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air that we breathe. Both directly and indirectly, microbial diversity in the soil supports and reinforces the vitality of the gut microbiome, which is the seat of our health. So the Trust is involved in various projects, but there are two key workshops. The first one, Return of the Larder, is a day gathered round the kitchen table, preserving foods using traditional techniques that maximise nutrition, minimise waste and support health and well-being for individuals, communities and the planet. The second one, Whole Food Medicine, is designed for health professionals, including GPs, nurses, second-year medics, health visitors and complementary practitioners. It is face-to-face, hands-on food and nutrition learning that engages the senses, the textures, the smells, the tastes, the sounds and the sights on the land and in the kitchen. To optimise nutrition, it's not just what we eat, it's how it's grown, which is why anyone who cares about health needs to care about soil, and why whole food medicine takes place in the centre of a farm. Our 3-year project together grew from our combined practices and how every bite of food has vast implications in shaping landscapes, society, economies, culture, health and well-being.
So I'd love to pick up from you, Daphne. Miche here, and what an honour to be working in this trio. We have been gathering together for over two decades, and this Taste of Change project is really a place that's becoming a portal for us to manifest some of what we have been cascading, practicing, manifesting in our own separate provinces. And my work has been as an artist, bringing food into consciousness and reconnecting our well-being as human beings to the well-being of the planet. So one of my mantras is every day, every mouthful, and I have been creating food interventions with food rituals and edible compositions on the land and in curious, quirky places like bridges, in glove factories, at the V&A Museum, in the Royal Geographic Society, on a bridge over the River Thames, all to bring food into a new awareness of experience by changing the environment within which you might eat food, and yet you're still eating food that has a familiarity because there's still a table and there's still very visibly the color, the texture, the form, the smell, and the sight of food, but it's curated in a way that invites a different exchange with the food. So as an artist, I feel that we need to bring new experiences to life by offering a different frame. So the food rituals are openings to new ways of being curious around food, inviting a question, inviting an unfamiliar relationship to something that is an everyday experience. the idea of the ritual itself is also about reclaiming that understanding that food is sacred and that we are in an everyday thanksgiving and gratitude to the food that we eat. So food rituals have become a way of reconnecting ourselves through the natural environment by remembering that food itself has to be grown, food that is vital, food that is health-giving has to be grown in land that is vital and health-giving. And that means the living soil, which is regenerated and fertilized through nature-based methods, not toxic, chemical, industrial, monocultured agriculture methods that are based in quick yields, fast yields, high yields. So we're reconnecting with a different pace of eating as well through being in a food ritual. It's slower, it's more spacious. There's time for reflection. There's time for an engagement with our own senses as well as an engagement with a collective of people who are also experiencing something, but experiencing it in their own way, through their own identities, through their own histories and biographies, but sharing in a taste of change through artistic and evolutionary ways that reconnect us and bridge relationships between cultures as well as agriculture. So it's political and it's sacred. And as I think Ai Weiwei speaks of as an artist, that it is through art that we can deeply, deeply begin to inform and engage with social change and with cultures that are requiring some shift in consciousness and perception. And we are doing this with food, and through food, the experience of food. But it's ecological food. It's food that comes from a base of growing that has been cultured through love, through generosity, through land care, water care, and soil care.
Really so inspiring to listen to the different voices here, but just the depth and the it's so many questions like are kind of being raised. But what I'd like to do is pass over to you, Flora, so we can hear your voice and listen to your own story and introduction.
Well, thank you, Helen. Thank you, Daphne and Miche. I'm really enjoying this process. So, Helen, I come to this amazing collaboration as an artist geographer. The particular contribution I feel I can offer, or the passion that I live with, is the idea that in geography one is always looking at the bigger picture, the map. And the thing about maps is we make them together. And what I think we're living with at the moment is a map of food and food systems that isn't flourishing either people or the land. And I think that what we are looking to do together with this project, and this is the work that I've been doing with Miche and with Miche and Daphne for many years, is offering new maps that we make together, new maps that honour what is already happening, honour the good practice that is everywhere, and new stories that those maps tell of people who are coming up with a diversity of solutions. There is no single solution, but I'm very passionate about the idea of systems change happening from a place where everybody is involved, and everybody is involved in a way that flourishes their own lives, their own biographies. And I think that's what we're bringing together, but I particularly love to bring. And I think the other angle that actually we all bring, but I'm just going to name now, is the research dimension. We're all practitioners, so we all have a hands-on practice with food, with land, with soil. But we also, in an age that really privileges technology and privileges the mind over matter and privileges the intellectual over the heart, I think what we're bringing together as a three is a form of research that is rooted in the knowing that comes from engaging with all of ourselves. And it's research that honours practice, honours the day-to-day interaction with matter, honours the knowledge that comes from touching matter, working together in groups, learning together in place. So this is part of this system change. It's understanding that solutions emerge from learning together, and that process needs some support, can benefit from some relationship building and some cultural infrastructure to make it happen. But it's really placing all of us back in a position where we are researchers of our own lives, and we are all able to come together and relearn and rebuild. And just to honour a research centre that we're associated with is the Centre for Agroecology, Water and Resilience here in the UK in Coventry. And that's a very special research centre because it really honours the very many ways that we come to know, and it really honours artistic practice and practitioners and the knowledge that they bring to systems change. So that's what I'd love to name here. And I would love to just add in a story I learnt from you, Miche. The man who wrote The Little Prince spoke about that if you want change to happen, you don't give people lists of instructions. You don't give people pictures of what they've got to make. If you want them to build a ship, you don't show them a picture of a finished ship and give them lots of nails and hammers. Instead, the role is to give people a sense of the longing for the sea. When people have that longing that belongs to them, they have that deep understanding of how things can be different. They will then build together the boats that they need that suit them. And that's really at the heart of what we've all brought. And I think it's a very radical model of change based on trust in people and the genius in people.
What a absolutely beautiful story, and how wonderful it summarises the essence of what you're doing. There's so much that I've learnt about each of you in those introductions, and that deep, deep transformative work, connecting through so many different elements of healing that are so necessary right now, and thinking right from the soil and recognizing that soil right there in our place at our feet is where it kind of all begins. You know, we can't have the transformation of beautiful, beautiful food if we don't have beautiful, nourished, healthy soil. And that moving through all of those different aspects, you're each sharing such a unique story and such a unique facet of that whole, but really beautiful how it weaves together. It's taking it from that seed in the soil right through to societal change, and something within systems change that feels very intangible at times and very chaotic and very like, well, how do we join the dots in this? Because we can see that change is needed and we can see what elements might go into that, but how do we actually make it happen in the outside world? And there's something really powerful about what you're describing in taking that learning from the soil and from the individual's health and that relationship with their body and their nutrition, and sharing it out and cascading it into the wider world and really making those shifts in society. It feels like it's birthing a new way to relate to one another. And really, yeah, I think that I'm going to really enjoy re-listening to this, because there's so much that each of you shared and so much that makes it all feel so much bigger because of those unique elements that you each bring, that diversity. I kind of would like to investigate that a little bit more, that role of art within systems change, because I think it's a deep, something unique about what you're bringing and recognizing the value of art. And just would love for you to share a little bit more on why you feel that's so important and the role of art in systems change.
I'd love to begin that with a story of how Daphne and I came together, which is that we met I cook as a Zen chef, at Zen retreats in Wales, and I would pass Daphne's nutritional cuisine and hotel, which was on the way in Penrhos. And many times I dropped in to find her, and one time she was actually there, and we met. And then a year later maybe, we met at a conference on food and farming. And we began the understanding that we would love to work together around food, with Daphne bringing in the nutrition, the medicinal chef, but also her beautiful artistry in her catering and in her teaching, and that I would begin to open up and evolve with her the food ritual aspect of my work as an artist. So two people working with food in a very similar way, but coming with a very different way of manifesting the practice. We came to an understanding that our collaboration had something in common and united us, and that was soil. We both understood the power and the potential and the necessity of vital soil for vital food. So after much thinking of what we would call ourselves, we called ourselves Soil Sisters, and this was 2 decades ago. There are other Soil Sisters, but we are definitely preceding any other Soil Sisters. And it was a beautiful way of sharing that our growth came from the living soil, and that the food that we shared and made possible in offerings to different groups. And our first big event together was called Gastrodome, and it was at Hay Festival, and we were invited to share an ecological gastronomy. And for 10 days, we cooked food from the land, and we shared large-scale posters of all the farmers, the growers, the cheesemakers, the food gardens from which this food came. So that was part of the artistry, was to bring alive those who are actually making the food and bring them into this beautiful geodesic dome. We also were looking to share that food is not just food for the soul and food for the health, it's actually also food for the mind. And so we invited some of the talks into the Gastrodome. So people came to share food, but they also came to share conversation. And we called it Feasting Belly and Mind. So that just brings Soil Sisters into the picture, and how my work as an artist complemented and helped to amplify Daphne's work, and Daphne's work with nutrition and her knowledge of the soil, gardening, planting, because all her work was also, the provisions were coming from her garden. She helped to amplify my understanding and my knowledge and my experience. So we really created a third space with Soil Sisters. And then over the years, my work as an artist was in this way working with a mantra called first know food, i.e. to know food, to experience food, to apprehend food, to discover food. And that from food, all things come, and through food, all things return. So it was that idea of the cycle. So part of my projects as an artist was to share with people the living cycle of food, and share with people from the seed to the planting, to the growing, to the harvesting, to the food preparation, to the stock making, to the eating and the sharing of food as a Thanksgiving, and then to the composting, and then back to the soil, so that the compost goes back to feed the soil. So we're in this beautiful cycle of regeneration, of renewal, of refreshing the soil, but also our soul, our body, and the body of the planet. So this has always been our connection, but the way that also I have brought food into my practice as an artist is as a political practice, where food becomes a way of gathering communities around who have issues around food security, food poverty as well, and bringing a practice such as fermenting cabbages into a room so that people have a chance to learn a skill as well as having a conversation about racial justice, food insecurity, and looking at fermentation as a metaphor for transformation that is not just nutritional, but it's social as well. And then from all of this work, I was invited to do a PhD on my food rituals and my food practices. And that, again, brought in a sort of philosophical element as well as a political and sacred part of understanding why ritual is so important as a way of cohering communities, because it connects us to the past and our ancestors. It connects us to our future forward days, and it connects us to the present. And the true ritual that is earth-based, that is this reconnection between our earth bodies and the body of the earth. It reconnects us to the elements, to the air, to the fire, to the water, to the soil. All of these are to create a whole-bodied experience of what is food to a culture. And doing it rituals through food amplifies the connection that ritual can have between the past, present, and future, the thanksgiving to the ancestors, but also to all the elements that allow the food to actually amplify, to be nutritional, to be beneficial, the sun, the stars, the moon. This is why Daphne speaks of this idea that our relationship with food is so extensive. It is not just about eating food. It is about reconnecting to a much wider picture of who we are as human beings in this cosmos. So that I think that's my expansive understanding of what art is as a process and as a consciousness-making process brings something to our threesome. And Daphne said a beautiful thing. It's that in some way, through this artistic practice with food and ritual, there is a different experiential storytelling through the food.
It's just amazing listening through the way that it comes to life. And I think the words that you're using, the way you're expressing it, in and of itself feels like it's moving my understanding, and that is the artwork. It's an example of it, and it's bringing this really stark contrast to that which you're describing, and then stepping into a supermarket and seeing these cold lit shelves of packaged food that just feels, it doesn't even feel like food. It doesn't step into that picture that you're describing, and yet that's the majority of people's experience with food. And there's something that's really so alive in the way that comes across because of how you described it. So thank you. I really, really enjoyed listening to that. I think that there's such a depth of conversation that we could have here. So I want to kind of keep moving us to different themes and go now to just uncover, although we've already touched on it and there's so much to it, if you could maybe highlight the challenges that you're hoping that this work can come up and work to change. What challenges are you seeking to work towards?
So may I just invite Daphne in, because in a way my relationship to why arts and why we all vibrate with that understanding is because unless that art touches another human being, no change can happen. And I think one of the questions you had was, how does what does it mean to become a food citizen? And I think if Daphne has a chance to share that, I think then we could go into that, the effect, the challenges. So at least we've got a bit more material and content. Does that make sense, Daphne?
Yeah, happy there. Food citizens. Well, When we eat, all the processes that make up the food system come together. Eating consciously as food citizens, taken collectively, these acts have the power to shape justice, health, and vitality for people and the planet. I think over the last couple of decades, certainly the last 10 to 15 years, the idea that we are just passive food consumers has been challenged, and the era of food citizenship has emerged. And food citizens are positive participants in shaping a food system that benefits us all, a system that encourages more ecological, biodiverse, sustainable and socially just forms of producing food. And we all have the capacity to be food citizens. And there are many, many ways of doing this. There are many elements that control our lives. It could be time, or it could be money, it could be family, it could be many things. But there are so many ways that you can actually engage in being a food citizen. You could choose local. If you choose local, you're going to eat seasonally. Support farmers markets, join a CSA, join a community orchard, grow your own, share an allotment, choose foods that are better for you and the planet. Just simply changing, a meal each week will slowly move you in the direction of food citizenship. You can cook and share food with people. You can compost. You can avoid waste. You can learn to preserve. You could join a gleaning network. There are so many ways that you can start the journey to food citizenship. And as I say, together we can really affect change with doing some of these small day-to-day alterations in our life. In a nutshell.
A whole nutshell.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Daphne. And I think that gives people a really practical sense of what it means to be a food citizen. It gives steps, it gives really tangible things that they can step into. So we've kind of, I feel like it's balancing out that kind of sense of the art and the expansive nature of that with some very concrete steps that people can take. So really well balanced. And so I'll leave you back on that question now about the challenges and what you'd like to address, you feel kind of is at the core of this.
Thank you. So I think it's been said very clearly up till now. So just really to sum up what's been shared, some of the key challenges that we face from what is an increasingly industrialized food system revolve around the fragmentation, the feeling as if you don't know where your food has come from and the people making it are far away, a sense of complexity, that it's a system that's too hard to change, and a sense of disempowerment that comes with that. There's nothing I can do. And all of that leads to a lot of secondary challenges around health, around the inequalities in access to food, and of course the damage being done to landscapes across the globe that lead to climate instability, lead to weather pattern changes. So we have an environmental degradation part of that challenge. I think what we know is possible, and Daphne has beautifully illustrated that, is that actually we can change the story, which is that rather than eating this food which is empty of nourishment, empty of relationship, empty of connection, we can actually imagine food systems where once again we are co-creators of that food system, and that food system isn't one food system dominated by very large and powerful corporations, but that food system has many multiple parts to it that suit the locality and that restores the ecosystems of that locality, restores people's cultural integrity, restores people's health, And how do we get there? And that's where this project fits in. How do we get to these solutions that are emerging out of place, emerging out of relationship? And I think Daphne really explained that picture of a different picture of food systems, a smaller scale, more responsive, more where people have relationship and feel connected to each other, to their food, to the land, and can be experiencing that very meaningful experience of being a food citizen, able to make the world a better place, which is such a deep human longing to care. The way we get there, and that's what our project is focusing on, is that what moves people, what activates people, what gives people will, what helps people tap into their true knowing of what they can do is experience with food, with each other. So at the heart of this project, A Taste of Change, is creating these skills and experiences and encounters with each other, with food, so that all of the people working to create a better food and farming system feel more connected, more confident, more able to work with the power of food as a transformative part of our lives. And I think, just to end on that, the key part of this is it's a research project. What we need to understand more deeply as a three and around the table and as a movement is, how do we actually work with food in that way? How do we make it feel as if those who are marginalised and excluded feel welcome and are able to define how those gatherings come together? How do we make sure that those experiences help us experience the whole system? So we've got everybody around the table, not just people who are growers, but meeting policymakers, meeting people who are producers. How do we ensure that when we have those experiences with food together, there's time to reflect together? What did that mean? How does this touch me? How can we build something new together? And finally, how do we as researchers, all of us as researchers, share the knowledge? How do we do that in ways that recognise people learn in different ways? How do we share with image, with story, with scientific evidence, with maybe music, with artworks? How do we nourish the movement with multiple resources? That's the taste of change.
Yeah, and to say why we've used the word taste of change, there's a beautiful Sufi saying which says, "Those who taste know." And that is knowing from the inside. That is knowing through the body.
It's really wonderful to have all three of you, the opportunity to hear from all three of you. You complement each other so beautifully and bring something so wonderful in that combination. And thank you, Flora. You've described it in a really clear way. I think it's a really challenging thing in it of itself to succinctly put across these ideas, but you've done it so wonderfully. And I'm really feeling this desire to amplify connections, inspire people, that from the inside out, inspiring and empowering as well. I think that's coming through very strongly. And so those things, those themes, I feel like it's really clear what you're seeking to do. And something that I picked up on that you said there, Flora, time to reflect together. I think that's such, in and of itself, such a powerful thing that we so often miss, because time is so precious, and the opportunity to come together and share and see how our thinking relates, see how we can expand and evolve through conversation, that's missing and so powerful. So I can really, I'm seeing a lot here that just sounds like wonderful. It sounds amazing, and I'm thrilled that you've come here to share it. If you would like to expand a little so that people have heard all of these different themes and all of these voices coming through, all of the sort of influences. Maybe you'd like to share a little of what will be happening this year.
I think this moves us into a depth of understanding of why we're calling this an artist residency. Your reflections on that sense of having spaciousness to be with, to reflect upon, in each other's presence and with the matter of food itself. We're not around a board table. We're not at a PowerPoint. We're not just having delicious food. What we're looking to do is have a dining experience that is part of a reflective space. And that's why the idea of it being a research residency and an artist research residency is that's what artist residencies invite. They invite artists to go and be in a space for some time to research and reflect on and explore their own process and practices, and then to share it as a kind of show or an exhibition or a presentation. That doesn't happen for us as culinary artists and activists at all. We're just busy doing the work. Sometimes we don't even have time to catch each other up and update each other on what our projects have been. So we'll be having time to deepen into each other's extraordinarily powerful, political, sacred, communal projects that have been essentially underway for the last decades. But, we get little touches and nuggets of them. This will be a chance to deepen into them and then to come up with some new, curious forms, ways of being, something that which will surprise ourselves, just as an artist residency would be. We're not trying to reproduce the old and the familiar. And we will be nurturing each other in all of that. So that just gives a little sense of why it's an artist residency, that we're doing research, and it will manifest in some manifesting.
One thing we know for sure is that for the future to be this thriving, flourishing world, we need creativity. And we need to understand all of ourselves, all of us as creative. And that creativity just comes through. We are birthing the new, but we're honouring the old in that process. It's this uplifting energy of curiosity, creativity, celebration. And I think this is medicine as well for us all. And to remember who we really are and that everything is possible.
It sounds so unique and such a beautiful opportunity, and I feel absolutely honoured to have been invited to join you at your table at this first offering that will be on the last day of your residency. I think that you've offered so much to the audience to reflect on, and I would just like to invite you to speak to them directly on any way that you'd like them to connect into this work, whether it be in the short term or the long term.
I can say quite simply that the project will be on our websites, and our websites are, Daphne, you can share yours. We are livingjustice.earth.
I'm greencuisinetrust.org.
I think maybe the other thing to share is that at this stage, we see this project as one rooted in partnership, and that we know that what we're doing aligns with a lot of other organisations, a lot of other philanthropic organisations, a lot of other community organisations, a lot of other researchers. And we see this really as a place for people to meet, relate, connect. So if people are resonating with anything we've shared, then please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And we're also very interested in this threefold exchange that underscores this project, which is that we're going to be working with host organisations who are giving us the resource of a residency. We are going to be offering a lot of our time in gift, particularly the creative side of sharing stories. And then we're also looking for people who can resource us financially so that this project can just be growing and evolving, because it is an emergent project. Although we have this anchor of these 3 residencies over 3 years, 3 tables over 3 years, and this this thread of sharing story and image. We welcome people for whom this project is a meaningful way for them to realise some of their dreams and ambitions. We're not seeing this as just a simple transactional project. It's about multiple ways of resourcing. It's about gifts of time, gifts of money, gifts of place, gifts of will and energy, knowledge. We're trying to free ourselves from that transactional model and see that this is really coming from a place of the new and the old, because we've been doing this for decades, but also it's ancestral. You know, we're only reviving old practices and customs of people who knew how to look after the land, the indigenous,
Look after each other.
and to look after each other through food, through caring for the soil, through caring for souls.
Thank you all for offering such an inspirational chat, such a lovely project that you're bringing together, and really deeply bringing food to life. So thank you for your time and best of luck with all of it.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check the description for the link to the 3-minute summary video about A Taste of Change, and to engage further with the work from Miche, Flora and Daphne. Don't forget to subscribe here to keep up to date. I'm Helen Fisher. This is We Are Carbon, and let's keep figuring this all out together.